Welcome back to Let's Talk to Animals, the podcast all species can enjoy together. My name is Shannon Cutts. I am an animal sensitive and intuitive, a Reiki master practitioner, and an animal communication teacher with animallovelanguages.com. And for our purposes here today, I am also your friendly neighborhood hostess and guide through the wild, wise, and wonderful world of interspecies communication. Call me crazy, but I truly believe that animal communication has the power to save, heal, and restore our planet for all species to enjoy and share. When we learn to communicate with one another, we begin to realize we are so much more alike than different. We care about each other. We become friends. On this podcast, we talk about what the animals have to say and share, and why our pets truly are our partners, empathic friends, and teachers. I am so glad you have joined us here for this fresh new episode of Let's Talk to Animals. So let's dive in. Welcome back to Let's Talk to Animals. Shannon here, and I'm so excited to share this intriguing topic with you. This is an area of my pets' lives that I've become increasingly curious about. One of the things that I have learned as a professional working animal communicator is that we as pet parents, as animal guardians, we don't know everything there is to know about our pets and their lives and their dreams and their other relationships. And while we can sort these types of questions out fairly easily when it comes to, well, how does my pet feel about that animal down the street or that dog around the corner or that cat that likes to hang out on the fence, we can't as easily sort out our pets' spiritual lives, our pets' soul level lives, if you will, or the lives that our pets remember from their soul families in the etheric space or the spirit space, however you like to conceptualize or think about that. And I see this every day as I'm talking with your animals when an animal will share something with me that the pet parent or the animal guardian, my human client, finds genuinely perplexing or confusing or flat out says, no, my animal's not like that, or that doesn't sound anything like what my animal enjoys or likes to do. And what I have learned over the years, studying with master teachers myself, becoming a teacher with my own students, is when something comes through, there's always a reason for it. There's always a thread of truth running through it, but there may be more nuance there for us to explore. There may be more there to know than we can even know. There is a level of amnesia, if you will, that we receive when we incarnate into a 3D physical body that is protective of the lessons that our soul has chosen to learn, the experiences that at the soul level, we know we need and want in order to grow and evolve as a soul. And so we may not know everything there is to know, even about our own soul journey, let alone about the soul journeys of others in our lives, and most especially our non-human family members who truly have their own secret lives. That movie, The Secret Lives of Pets, that was onto something. And I experience that every day. And over time, as I gain the trust of my animal spirit teachers and guides and mentors and coaches, and by gaining their trust, I mean, I continue pressing forward. I continue moving through challenges. I continue showing up. I continue asking, I want to see, I want to hear, I want to smell, I want to taste, I want to sense, I want to feel, I want to know, I want to grow, I want to evolve. Please help me. More and more is revealed. And of course, if you've been listening to Let's Talk to Animals for some time now, you know that as I learn more, I always want to come here and I want to share it with you. And I want to get your insights and experiences as well. And when a topic bubbles up as strongly as this one did a few days ago in my morning meditation, I have the feeling that as you're listening, you may resonate with what I'm sharing and even be able to scan your recent perimeter of experiences and intuitive insights and realize that maybe this is bubbling up for you too. So let me know if that happens. But I want to start right at the beginning with what are we talking about when we're talking about an animal's spirit guide? Or a power animal or an animal totem. Hey, wait, I thought that was just for people. Well, we may have appropriated it for our species, and certainly we are probably the life form here on planet Earth that needs spirit level or soul level support the most. But we are far from the only embodied beings who live here on Earth who have what I call a light team. Now, when I'm teaching animal communication and I'm talking about the light team, I'm talking about a diverse collective of soul level entities, energies, and beings of all species and in all dimensions who gather around the communicator to provide support in many different areas. That support may be very direct to animal communication, that support may be directed at something related. Let's say a personal obstacle or an unhealed trauma or wound in their own life that's preventing them from being able to talk freely with animals about things like trauma or wounds. It could be something that seems totally unrelated to animal communication, but has everything to do with how that individual student is able to show up for their life, for new opportunities like learning animal communication. So it's a diverse collective. And the way that I like to explain light teams is that our light team members may come into our life for a reason, season, or a lifetime, just like that old cliche. In other words, we have at least one spirit guide or master level coach, teacher, mentor, helper who is with us for the duration and in between lives and over multiple incarnations. So you can think of this individual like the guardian of the soul's growth and evolution, and the one who retains the big picture perspective of that soul from start to unfolding. I don't know if we can say conclusion. The jury's still out on that one. But there is at least one entity or energy who is continually with that soul. And that soul trusts their master teacher or their master spirit guide implicitly and relies on them. Then we can have a host of other light team helpers from any dimension, from many different energy levels. We might say, I need a light team member to help me with this. Or I'm having trouble talking with an animal about this particular topic. For me, for many years, it was food because I have recovered from an eating disorder. So I just didn't like to talk about food with animals. And so I needed to call in a special troubleshooting light team member to help me with food and talking about food with comfort and ease and openness and receptivity. For you, it might be something completely different. And we can have light team members come in for helping us with relationships, with health, with soul evolution, with finding our path and our teacher. If you are looking for an animal communication teacher, you can ask for a teacher spirit guide to come in and guide you to the right teacher. So we have all of these different spirit helpers. Now, this is just for humans right now that we're talking about. And until I started studying and then practicing animal communication, I didn't really give much thought to whether or not non human animals, my planet mates, also have light teams, also have power spirit guides, also have master teachers, coaches, supervisors, overseers who guide them from incarnation to incarnation. And it was only when I began to feel particularly called to work with pets who are wanting to reincarnate back to their people that I felt increasingly drawn to examine the behind the scenes. And the animal said to me, you're going to need to know this so you can help others through it. Talk knowledgeably about the mechanics. And so they began to unfold the behind the scenes for me. And it's just been so fascinating to realize that our non human family members and our loves, they also have so much spirit support. So if you ever see your animal just staring off into space or staring into a corner or looking up or digging in a particular corner of the yard, and we'll talk about all kinds of signs that you can look for a little bit later on in this episode, but just know that's not nothing. There's always a reason. And there's a high degree of likelihood that they're just taking a quiet moment with a member of their light team or maybe even their master teacher and their master guide to check in, to download updates, to maybe talk through issues, whatever that they feel like they need to do to keep progressing in their learning journey. I always share with my pet parent clients, and if you've had a session with me, you've probably heard me say this. Nobody comes into one of these 3D physical bodies, these space suits, as the animal calls them, without having two purposes. One purpose is they've got something that they need to learn and want to learn. And two, they have something that they need to or want to teach, to share. So we all incarnate into these 3D spacesuits, needing to learn something and bringing guidance, wisdom, something that we can share or teach to others. And our non human family members are no exception to that. So they too, just like we do, they're going to need some help with that. We don't exist very well in a vacuum. We need lots of help and support. And often we'll find that in the relationships with the embodied souls around us. It's no accident when we wind up with certain animals in our family. You think of all of the animals out there in the world waiting to be adopted who aren't in your family right now. And you think of the animals who are in your family and look back and even feel like, well, it was random how this animal or that animal joined my family. Well, it's not random. That is their soul family in action, activating here on the 3D Earth plane. And the same thing holds true for us. So we have soul family members of all different species. Isn't that something fun to think about? And that would be a topic for a whole different episode. But in this episode, I really want to focus us on ways that you can meet and get to know your pet's power animal or spirit guide. And the reason I use these terms loosely is because these different guides may have slightly different presentations or roles in your animal's life, depending on what they're here to work on, what they need to learn, and what they're here to teach. And I'll give you examples of this in just a minute, but you can use any terminology you like. I like to call it the Power Animal Guide because I feel like one of the main roles of these master guides in our pets' lives is to empower them, to encourage them, to inspire them. Whether we like to acknowledge it or not, we human animals, we pet parents, we can be a challenge to live with sometimes. Am I right or am I right? I know I can be. And our animals need support. They need help sometimes just to put up with us, let alone to love us unconditionally the way that they do through all of our ups and downs and through all of the choices that we make on their behalf without knowing or even realizing we can ask them first and find out, is this really what's best for you? And so often they just have to roll with our punches, so to speak, and adapt and adjust. So, yes, they're going to need some support. So, that's what I like to think of this particular guide that we're talking about today that accompanies your animal throughout their 3D incarnation and in between lives and through multiple incarnations as well. That's why I like to think of them like the pet's power animal guide. Of course, the pets have told me that when they come into our world and they join our families, they are our partners, empathic friends, and teachers. That again is a tall order. So these are their power animal guides who empower them, encourage them, and inspire them to teach us about partnership, especially interspecies partnership, to teach us about empathy and how it works and where we can access it within us and how to receive it. A lot of us are really not too great at receiving love and empathy as well. And they're also our teachers. And that's why we so often will share symptoms and we'll share issues, we'll share emotional traumas, we'll share things with our animals because they're trying to lead us through those and trying to teach us how to heal by asking us to help them heal. It's just such a fascinating area of exploration and contemplation for me. So, today, what we're going to talk about specifically is not whether your animal has a power animal guide, because they do, but how you can get to know who your animal's power animal guide is, and maybe even get a glimpse of that relationship or how to meet them. Now, you might be wondering to yourself, well, why would my pet allow me to get to know their private, personal power animal guide? Again, it's not a given. These are ideas that you can use to approach and ask for an invitation to meet your animal's power animal guide. Chances are good you will have an intuitive insight somewhere along the way. It might not happen immediately. Our pets are mostly open to sharing every aspect of their lives that we are interested in learning about because of the nature of their role in our lives, the reason they come into our lives. And when you think about how many non human animals are embodied, are incarnated right now on this planet who have no soul contract to spend much, if any, time with humans, for me, it makes me really realize how special our pets are because these are the small subsection of animals embodied right now on this planet who specifically have agreed to keep company with us. They have specifically agreed to spend time with us and to open up their lives, their hearts, their souls, even to us, to help us. So they are on our light team automatically. And that's even another reason why they would need their own light team, right? But let's take a look at some ways. And I'm going to share stories from my own interspecies family so you can get a sense of how you might get hints from your animal directly about who their primary power animal guide is. And I just want to add a PS to that before we dive into these stories. And then I give you the 6 tips for how to take a look and see if you can catch glimpses of your animal's power animal guide. I want to pause and say, just because we're only talking about a primary power animal guide does not mean this is the only member of your animal's light team. Your pet, like you, has multiple light team members. And of course, if you want to learn more about that, you can always join me for Animal Communication Adventure to Mastery and Practice Circle. That's a great place to meet your own light team and learn more about them. I just want to be clear, we're not talking about meeting your animal's whole light team. We're not talking about your animal only has one light team member. We're just talking about if a primary, if not the primary power animal guide who is present with your pet throughout their incarnation, specifically with you. This may turn out to be your animal's overarching master teacher who is with them through multi lifetimes and between lives, or this may be a specific power animal guide who has stepped up to play a principal role in your animal's life, guiding them through this incarnation with you. So, again, we're looking at reason, season, and lifetime, with lifetime being that overarching multi lifetime, and season being this incarnation, and a reason being somebody that we might actually actively call in. And your animal can call in specific light team members just like you can, just like I can. So much to ponder and explore. It's hard to keep on track. So, I'm going to share stories from my own interspecies family about who they have shared with me is their primary power animal guide. And each one of these stories, you'll notice that the insight came to me in different ways. So, this is really fun because this will relate to the clues that I'm going to give you for how you can start to explore this process with your own pet family. So I'm going to start with my soul bird Petal, who's the reincarnation of my soul bird Pearl of 24 years, who's the reincarnation of my soul bird Jacob of 3 years, who's the reincarnation of my original soul bird Perky of 11 years. So we've got a multi lifetime soul cracked for this soul who I've now named Petal. She actually chose her own name. And there's a whole episode on that if you want to learn more about how Pearl reincarnated back to me as Petal, and you can check that out. But Petal, because she came back to me as Pearl, what I discovered when I was exploring Petal's power animal guide is there's been a carryover from Pearl. And so what I've got here is a lifetime power animal guide, and the animal guide is the eagle. And the way that this arose for me was really fun. back in the day before I realized I too could talk with animals and I was hiring animal communicators, I also was writing a book and running a popular pet blog called Love and Feathers about my relationship with my soul bird, Pearl. And one of the recurring themes in this blog, and in this blog, which you can still find on the internet, I'm not active there anymore, but it's loveandfeathersandShells.com if you want it out. The way that it worked is I would have these imaginary conversations with Pearl in the form of short blog posts and little cartoons. And I always thought I was just making up Pearl's side of the conversation at this point. And even when I wrote the book, which evolved out of the blog, I thought I was making up Pearl's end of the conversation. I was pretty dense, and it took me a long time to figure out that Pearl's end of the conversation was Pearl's end of the conversation. It was really real. But one of the recurring themes was this stuffed animal eagle toy that Pearl just loved and he took to immediately. And so this little stuffed eagle toy featured pretty prominently in a number of the cartoons and a number of the little short blog posts. And he became known for loving this little eagle toy, and they were about the same size. So it was really cute if you see these pictures and videos of the two of them interacting. And when I started to get more interested in animal totems, that was when I started to put the pieces together. And I started to think about the qualities of the eagle and even the call of the eagle, the sound of the eagle, and the way that they call, and the fact that they bond and mate for life. And they have these intense relationships and intense displays of affection and bonding, and their position as the apex at the top of the food chain. And there were so many other experiences that I had. And then when I went to Alaska, actually getting to see a bald eagle and having it molt out a feather right at my feet. It was just incredible and undeniable that my soul bird Pearl, now Petal, has the master spirit guide of the eagle. I didn't need to pull an oracle card. I didn't need to go scrounging around. I didn't need to use any of the other clues that we're going to talk about. All I needed to do was look into the legacy of my life with Pearl and the experiences that I have had and the response that Pearl gave to this particular toy. Very different. We had lots of other stuffed animals that Pearl enjoyed. I even had little crocheted stuffed cockatiel toys. Pearl was a cockatiel, in case you're not familiar, that looked just like him. And they were just the same size. And he was not really interested in them. He loved this little eagle. And it became very, very clear to me that the eagle is continuing to watch over Pearl, now Petal, continuing to infuse those qualities, continuing to guide and support, empower, and encourage Pearl, and now Petal as Pearl. And so that was a pretty easy one, actually, for me to unpack. Then I decided next I was going to ask Malty, my 11-year-old red footed tortoise, who is her power animal guide. I'm so curious about this. And as I started exploring my memories in my meditation, I do a lot of this work in meditation so that I can place my brain in that receptive alpha state where I can access what I call the imagination to intuition pathway. Einstein and so many other inventors and scientists and creators have found so useful. I figure if it works for them, it works for me. So I love doing this work in alpha brainwave state and meditation, and even in theta sometimes. And we'll talk about that. And I'm contemplating and I'm remembering a story of being a student myself in one of the animal communication classes that I enrolled in as a student. And several of my students were practicing with each other's animals. And we decided we're going to practice with my tortoise, Malty. And Malty tells not one, not two, but three of the other students that she has a friend who is an orange cat. Luckily, this was a little later on in my animal communication learning journey. And I knew better than to say, that's not correct. She doesn't have any cat friends. We don't have a cat, et cetera, et cetera. Don't get me wrong. I'd love to have a cat, but Petal doesn't want one. And I said, "That's really interesting. I'll keep an eye out for that." Well, wouldn't you know it, the next 2 days, I saw an orange feral cat hanging around, sitting on the fence above where Malty has dug herself a nice cozy summer mud wallow. And I thought, "Oh, I'm so glad I didn't tell those students that they were wrong. They were totally on it. They got it. I'm the one that was clueless." And then I began to think back even further and contemplate our experiences. And I remembered living in a house with 3 orange cats. They were all indoor, outdoor cats. And one in particular, I was warned about by the landlord that this cat was very, very stray and feral and tends to be hissy and bitey. Malty would walk right up to this cat, and the two of them would just look at each other. I never saw the cat make any aggressive moves ever. They would just look at each other. And then I moved to another house. I used to move a lot, and there was an orange cat. Yet again, Malty would walk right up to the cat and just stare. And I would always run after Malty. No, wait, you're this little tiny baby hatchling. She was not afraid. She would just walk right up and they would just sit there together. I often joke that Malty is a cat in a turtle shell. She's so independent. She knows exactly what she wants when she wants it. She keeps her own counsel. She's very self assured, especially for one who is still so young, especially in tortoise years. And it just clicked. Malty's spirit power animal guide is a cat. Now, the feeling that comes along with this for me is that the cat is Malty's power animal guide for this incarnation. So here we'd be talking about a season. This is the particular empowerment and just grounding and stability that Malty needs. She had a very tumultuous life with me growing up. She had a lot of health challenges. We had a lot of physical moves, a lot of difficulties in my life. And she just had to weather and navigate. And she has been my rock, literally, throughout. And this cat power animal guide, I feel, has given her the inner support to be able to support me and be a rock for our little family. So now let's turn our attention to Io, my 3.5-year-old box turtle. Now, Io is my beloved Bruce box turtle reincarnated through Soul Walk-In. And I actually recorded a 2-part episode on how that happened that you can check out and learn more about that story and how amazing it was. You could have knocked me over with the proverbial feather when I realized what had just happened. It was a crazy, crazy story and a dream come true. And with Io, the insights about his power animal guide came to me in yet a different way. It was a very internal feeling and also an almost dream time experience. If you can believe it, watching the movie The Wizard of Oz when I was a girl. I used to love that movie. My mom was really strict about our TV time, and we were always allowed to watch that movie. And I was always so struck by the cowardly lion who just wanted a heart. And when I contemplated and asked Io about his power animal guide, suddenly I received a visual and almost a dream time state, seeing the movie playing in my mind and hearing the cowardly lion singing about if only he had a heart. And what's so interesting is both Bruce and Io, and here again, I feel that we've got a lifetime power animal guide because we're looking at a power animal guide who has persisted now over Bruce's incarnation. Then Bruce passed, came back into Io's body, now is watching over Io. They both have the same coloration as a lion. It's just wild. Most box turtles are extremely colorful. And while Io is a little bit more colorful than Bruce was, they both have this sandy, tan, olive coloration. And they both have this same come closer, go away personality. Almost like they're trying to find their courage and they're trying to shore up their inner stability. You don't think about turtles and tortoises normally as being unstable or being shy or being ungrounded. And yet, that has been my experience as a lifelong turtle and tortoise lover and keeper. That has been my experience with both Bruce and Io. Bruce more than Io. Bruce really paved the path for Io to blossom. So Io hasn't had it as hard as Bruce did, but both of them, because it took 2 years for Bruce to pass out of his body before his soul became available to walk in to Io's little body. Io was with me for a couple of years as a placeholder soul. Didn't really have a relationship with Io. And once Bruce walked in, the shift was overnight. So you can listen to the podcast episode doubleheader for more on that. But it was an overnight shift. It was a very quick transition for Io to welcome Bruce's soul. And he's still growing up. So there's a lot of need for empowerment and encouragement. And he so embodies that cowardly lion personality. So here we're actually pulling kind of a reference and a very specific element of a young male lion's role and evolution and needing to go and make his own way in the world and create his own family and how challenging that can be. And that is exactly where both Bruce was when I first met him and also where Io is right now. So this is definitely the energy that Io needs for inner soul level support. Now, I want to talk about our dachshund, Flash Gordon. And this is so interesting. So, Flash Gordon is a standard wire haired dachshund, if you are not familiar with my family. And he's 10 years old and he has had quite a journey. When he first came to our family, he bonded with my mom and dad. So he's their dog. And I kind of inherited him when my father passed a couple years ago. And I moved in here to help mom with the house, et cetera, and just be here with her. And so I've inherited Flash Gordon, and we've had a bit of a journey ourselves. Our relationship, I think it's probably most polite to say it's complicated. There is love at the core, but there's lots of other interesting things that have unfolded. And he was just very closed down. And so it's been very interesting having an animal communicator in the family and on site, so to speak. I've done a lot of energy work. I've done a lot of healing work with him. We've had a lot of animal communication sessions. We've had iridology sessions. We've had acupuncture, massage. We've had emotion code, body code, you name it. Anytime somebody emails me and says, I'd love to donate a free session to one of your animals, et cetera, so you can try it out. I'm like, oh, I've got the candidate right here. So Flash has had a lot of experiences and he's opened up a lot. He used to be so shut down. He didn't want to play. He didn't want to cuddle or snuggle. He was very food aggressive to the point of biting seriously. So we've really had a challenge. And the one thing that Flash has always loved and cannot get enough of is lizards. I kid you not. The squirrels could come and sit on our porch and have a fine dining experience, and he will not bother them. In fact, he'd probably join them. But if he sees one of those little brown or green lizards running around, he will go nuts trying to get to it. He doesn't ever hurt them, but he will chase the crap out of them. And he's always been fascinated with lizards. So that was pretty easy to figure out how Flash is receiving support from the lizard archetype, being small, being quick, being flexible, being able to change your colors for different situations, being watchful and curious, but not overly afraid, and exploring, hunting around for things, just enjoying life, being a part of the world, not holding oneself apart from it. So it was pretty easy in my meditative state to receive the information about who Flash's power animal guide is. And I believe that this power animal guide is really for a reason. So this is situational. This is to help Flash move through this lifetime and evolve from the very closed down, very introverted, very reserved. Now he has just opened up so much. But there's also a PS to this story because my mother's soul dog was JP Morgan, who was also a standard dachshund. And when JP transitioned, I had a dream that Flash was going to come into their family. It was such a powerful dream. It happened before I knew I could talk with animals. And in the dream, it was just after JP had passed, and I saw JP Morgan in my dream. And then I saw this little puppy with the exact, very unique coloration, including a white splash on the chest that Flash Gordon has. And it was so specific that I actually went online and went looking and found a little puppy that had this similar coloration. I printed it out for my parents, brought it over to their house and said, I think I had a dream about your next puppy. Well, lo and behold, they had reached out to JP Morgan's breeder. And when they showed me the picture of the puppy that she wanted to place, it was the exact coloration. And I realized that JP Morgan had come into my dream to tell my parents, yes, that's the puppy. So, of course, we expected a very similar personality, and that's not at all what we got. JP was very calm. He loved people. He had a huge circle of friends. He was so loving and loved to cuddle and just hang out. And Flash was, oh, an unholy terror. Very cut off, very reserved, very aggressive. It was the strangest experience at the time. We've since decoded why. But JP was letting me know in that dream that he is one of Flash Gordon's power animal guides. So you can sometimes detect these threads, even if it's not a reincarnation, because JP did not reincarnate as Flash, but JP is guiding Flash because over the years, he has become so like JP, so different, so much more. Now he has a huge circle of friends. We just had a 10th birthday party for him, and all of his friends from the neighborhood came and drank wine and tried slices of his cupcake. So there's a clear relationship that's enduring over Flash's lifetime. And this comes through as a seasonal power animal guide. So JP is with Flash throughout this lifetime. More to be revealed about what might happen in future incarnations. But clearly, JP is watching over Flash and supporting him and helping him open up. So, those are 4 stories from my own personal pet family, just to give you some insight into how this information comes through. Now, I want to give you some tips for how you can explore this with your own pet or pets if you have multiple pets in your family. The first one is to simply follow my example, and whether you do it in any kind of formal meditation experience or you prefer to do it when you're just drifting off to sleep or you're just waking up from being asleep, you want to try to get into that alpha brainwave state where you're floating a little bit in between conscious left brain dominant awareness and subconscious right brain dominant awareness. This is the right place to be for inspiration to strike. And if you can place yourself in that state and just simply ask the question, who is my animal's power animal guide? And notice, get curious, wonder, see what arises. That's the first step. And the reason I say when you're just waking up or you're just falling asleep, that's another time that you can hold the question in your awareness quite naturally without feeling like you have to battle your left brain mind. It's always talking, talking, talking at you and telling you what to do. Now, if you want to take that step further, tip number 2 is you can continue to hold that question as you slide into theta and even delta, which is the dream state and the deep sleep state. You'll notice in Io's story, I had a dream time experience of watching The Wizard of Oz. So that is an example of another way that inspiration can more easily reach you, especially if you're consciously holding it in your awareness. Who is, in my case, Io's power animal guide? So you can do this with your own pet's name and just hold that question into dream time and be sure when you wake up to say to yourself, I remember my dreams, and notice anything. And if you can grab even a tiny kernel or tidbit of anything you remember, that will lead to the next and the next and the next. And that's a powerful dream recall technique you can use. As we learned from Petal Pearl's story, you can also take a look and see, does your pet have a favorite toy? Is there one toy? I remember one of my pet clients' little dog who had this big pink pig that she just freaking loved. And she just wanted to go everywhere with this big pink pig. In Pearl's case, It was this little stuffed eagle toy. Now, our dachshund doesn't have a favorite toy, and neither do Malti or Io. So sometimes these can really stand out, especially if you maybe are living with a dog or a cat or another animal, and maybe multiple animals, and just one of your pets is obsessed with a particular toy. You can take a look for clues there. Could that be this particular animal's power animal guide in plushie form or in chew toy form? That's another fun way to explore it. And as we learned from Flash's story and also Maltese story, you can look to your pet's wild environment and notice most dogs are obsessed with chasing squirrels. Dogs that chase small, fast moving objects, squirrels seems to be a really popular choice. Not for Flash. I don't know what he thinks they are. He's oblivious to them. We'll stand in the yard and we'll say, Flash, squirrel, and he doesn't go anywhere near them. He's, what's the big deal? I see it. No big deal. But we don't even have to say anything for lizards, and he's off like a shot after them. So you can look to your animal's wild surroundings and notice, is there something, some synchronicity, something that draws your attention, especially if it's a little bit unusual for the species or breed, or it's just a little bit unusual in your experience? That could give you a clue to go and research the animal's archetype and learn about some of the qualities as a teacher, as a guide. That's another tip. I have an oracle card deck by Colette Baron Reed called the Spirit Animal Oracle Deck. And it was given to me as a gift by a dear friend when I was just enrolling in my first animal communication learning class. And I still use it. There are many wonderful card decks and resources. You can research it on the internet if you prefer, but that's a really good way is if you have a deck or even a digital deck and you can hold the question in your mind, who is my pet's animal spirit guide or power animal guide? And then shuffle the cards and just intuitively pull a card. That might be the power animal guide your pet has for a reason. So just situational, a season, just this incarnation, or a lifetime. And that's the overarching life between lives and multiple incarnations. And either way, you can feel into it further and further and you can explore it, but just start learning about some qualities and characteristics of that animal. And then finally, this is a really fun one. You can ask yourself, if your pet wasn't their species and breed, what animal do they most remind you of? I have so often joked that my tortoise Malty is a cat. So it was right there in front of my face for so many years, and I just didn't realize what I was looking at. I didn't realize that the cat, the feline, that archetype is all over her soul print, is clearly an aspect of her evolving personality. So if you are living with a dog who's cat like, or a bird who thinks they're a turtle, or a cat who behaves more like your childhood rabbit, those are places to look for the kinds of qualities that your pet may be unfolding in their personality, in their life. Maybe these are qualities not borrowed, but absorbed through contact with another animal's archetype and species imprint to give them a more well rounded experience in life, to help them over maybe some internal emotional hurdles, to help them open up. In Io's case, the archetype of the lion to help him be braver. He doesn't seem to know from one moment to the next whether he's being bold or he's being scared. And so it's so easy to see how borrowing the energy or just absorbing some of the energy of the lion archetype is helping him feel more at ease and safe in his environment. So please give these tips a try one more time. Here are the tips in order. You can ask in an alpha state, either in meditation or as you're slipping into or out of sleep, who is my animal's power animal guide, and see what arises. You can continue to hold that question as you fall asleep and enter the theta state. or even the delta state. And then when you wake up in the morning, say to yourself, I remember my dreams, and grab any little tidbit and follow that thread. You can notice if your pet has a favorite toy, especially an obsessive favorite, especially one that maybe you're just not familiar with your animal's species liking that kind of toy or liking toys, or your other animals don't seem to have a preference, anything that just stands out in your awareness. You can follow that archetype further. You can work with an animal spirit guide, oracle card deck, or digital deck and pull a card and explore more. You can notice the wild animals that are in your animal's near space. You can notice, for instance, if your dog chases lizards instead of squirrels, or if your turtle seems to be good friends with every orange cat she ever meets. And just notice any synchronicities that stand out to you. And you can ask yourself, if my pet wasn't their species or breed, what species or breed do they most remind me of? And you can explore that a little bit more too to gain some insight. And be patient with this. You can try multiple different tips or techniques. You can play with this. The goal is to be light-hearted, to have a light, playful, curious, creative energy, to tap into that imagination to intuition, right brain dominant, subconscious pathway through which all wonderful new ideas and inventions flow. And please post a comment or shoot me an email or tag me over on Instagram at Love and Feathers and Shells, or at Animal Love Languages on Facebook, and let me know what you discover. I look forward to hearing your stories of the power animal guides who are watching over, empowering, inspiring, encouraging, and guiding your beloved pet family. So please do let me know. I will be waiting to hear, and more to be revealed, right? So that's it for this episode, and I look forward to hearing your insights as well. I have so enjoyed sharing this episode with you. If you're new to the Let's Talk to Animals community and you've enjoyed this episode, please do leave us a review on your favorite streaming service, or drop a comment wherever you like to listen. I'd love to hear from you, and your feedback truly helps me shape future episodes based on your interests and needs. If you're not already in my weekly love letters community, head over to animallovelanguages.com to opt in. Your welcome email will include $25 off your first pet session with me, and you'll be the first to know when a new podcast episode drops. If you're interested in learning more about the work I do communicating with animals, offering pet Reiki, and teaching animal communication, please visit me at animallovelanguages.com. Click on Schedule for Pet Sessions and Programs for all the information about my new Animal Communication Adventure to Mastery student program and the live animal communication practice circle I run for student practitioners. And I look forward to welcoming you back here very soon for a fresh new episode of Let's Talk to Animals. Okay, all my love. Bye for now.